Dak Prescott has himself a new weapon in Dallas. The Archer, Brandin Cooks, has arrived, and it is official, guys. This offseason, the Dallas Cowboys have been cooking with gas. First, Stephon Gilmore, one of my favorite players in the NFL. And now Brandin Cooks, another one of my favorite players in the NFL. Brandin Cooks has been traded to the Dallas Cowboys for a 2023 5th-round pick and a 2024 6th-round pick. This year, he's reconstructed his contract for the Texans to pay him $6 million and the Cowboys to pay him $12 million. So for Dallas, he's only making $12 million this year. That is a very good contract for a wide receiver. That is still very good. That has 6 1,000-yard seasons under his belt. And that is a perfect, I'm telling you, perfect fit for this offense, and exactly the ingredient they were missing for Dak Prescott to have a great year in 2023. I predicted this fit. That's how ideal I thought it was. I predicted this trade. That doesn't happen too often, okay? It's hard to predict trades. It was that ideal. Why was it ideal? Well, you look at the Dallas Cowboys offense last year. They were missing speed. They were missing a deep threat. They were missing a vertical threat down the field. What that allowed defenses to do is double team CeeDee Lamb in almost every situation, at least meaningful situation. They collapsed on the underneath routes of Dalton Schultz and Noah Brown and CeeDee Lamb and the running backs. Because Michael Gallup, their ex-receiver, their outside perimeter main threat, did not have that deep speed, did not have that threat vertically that really scared defenses last year coming off of injury. But now Brandin Cooks changes the game for Dak Prescott, for this offense, for the play caller. Because defenses now, you have to respect Brandin Cooks. The guy came out into the NFL in 2014 with 4.3 speed. He's still got burner speed. He hasn't lost it at 30 years old. He showcased that last year, the year previous in Houston, that he was the alpha target in Houston, guys. There was no one else there. He was the guy every time he played, every snap he took in Houston with Davis Mills and Jeff Driscoll. Brandin Cooks was the alpha. Now, he's more of the secondary option. He's more of the number 2 option at this stage of his career at 30 years old because CeeDee Lamb is there. And he is one of the craftiest, best route runners and separators in the game, especially short and intermediate. So you've got to respect him, and you've got to put your number 1 guy in man coverage on him. And if he's in the slot, linebackers, nickels, safeties, they're going to be looking at CeeDee Lamb. So safeties, man, you can't just leave Brandin Cooks one-on-one. You've got to have a guy over top because Brandin Cooks, like I said, 6 1,000-yard seasons. But more importantly than that, he has the second most pass interference calls called against the defense in his favor since he entered the league. That's because he's always a step or two ahead on those deep passes. He is a guy that causes defenses to hold him, to interfere with him, to take the top off that defense. So they're scared of Brandin Cooks down the field, still at 30 years old. I guarantee it. Which means that, okay, we can't always double CeeDee Lamb. We've got to be aware of Brandin Cooks. Brandin Cooks is a guy that can get open one-on-one if you leave him independent outside. He can run great comeback routes, great deep out routes, great crossers because of those speed and because he's very good at kind of contorting himself, going full speed, bam, stop, and then come back to the ball. I saw it with New England numerous times. New England in 2017, it's actually funny. They acquired Stephon Gilmore and Brandin Cooks in the same offseason. And now the Dallas Cowboys have done that in 2023, about 5 or 6 years later. I love both players. Stephon Gilmore is going to elevate this locker room with his work ethic, with his competitiveness. He's a great corner still, a top 10 cover corner in my opinion in the league. He's so smart. He's going to make make players around him better. He did with J.C. Jackson. Brandin Cooks is going to do the same. Brandin Cooks is very hardworking. It's been said by Bill Belichick, nobody has better cardio than Brandin Cooks. Nobody runs more yards in an NFL game than Brandin Cooks with all the verticals he runs. Posts, comebacks, goes. The guy's just running all the time. He has great cardio. He's always in shape. And he's typically on the field. The only time Brandin Cooks has really missed time is due to the concussion stuff. Maybe he's getting a little bit older, so you got to be aware of that. But he's the number 2 now. He's not the guy you're relying on all the time. And I think he's perfect in that scenario, especially when the number 1 guy is more of an intermediate short threat. Because Brandin Cooks is a dynamic deep threat. And a good intermediate threat as well. I actually thought since he left New England, he got better, especially with Houston. I felt like with Houston in 2020, 2019, just going off the top of my head here, that the guy was better here, 2021, 2020. That's what I'm referring to. The guy was more uncoverable then than he was earlier in his career with New Orleans, Los Angeles, New England. Because I feel like he grew into a better short player, a better intermediate route runner. His ability to create yards after catch. He became more well-rounded. I think earlier in his career, he was just very much a deep threat. But now I think this is a guy that, on top of being more well-rounded, more sound, because he's gotten some experience and age with multiple systems, multiple coaching staffs, multiple geniuses, from Belichick, Sean Payton, and Sean McVay. This guy's grown exponentially. He's been in locker rooms that have won. He's been in locker rooms that have gone far in the playoffs. He's had 2 Super Bowl appearances in his career. He's won playoff games. But maybe even more important than that, Brandin Cooks can bring experience of, I've been to the top and I've also been to the bottom. I've been with the best teams in the league and I've been with the worst team in the league. And that was my most recent visit, which makes me believe that I've got a chip on my shoulder to come into Dallas and really prove what I still am and prove that, hey man, maybe earlier in my career, I took advantage of the opportunity, the relevance that my teams constantly had. I didn't understand how hard it was to win in the NFL. You constantly hear this from players, especially veterans. Brandin Cooks is now a vet. He's been in the league since 2014. Even though he's only 30 years old, he's been in the league for a while. And Brandin Cooks probably now takes that opportunity with Dallas that much more serious because he was with Houston, a terrible football team with terrible quarterbacks, a terrible infrastructure. He's been complaining about it as of late. He saw what New Orleans was. He saw what New England was. He saw what LA was. Houston was not the same. So now Dallas, he's going to have that much more energy for this team. Last year, he had 57 catches in 13 games on 93 targets. Part of that reception percentage is due to the fact that his quarterbacks are absolutely terrible in Houston. Jeff Driscoll, Davis Mills, not exactly Dak Prescott, right? And then you have 699 yards, 3 touchdowns in those 13 games, which averages out to about 53.8 yards per game, which is his lowest of his career, right? Since his rookie season, pretty much. Actually, one year at 26 years old with the Rams was 41.6. That was the concussion year. He has dealt with concussions, but that's pretty far removed. Last year, I think part of the motivation, veterans, sometimes they give up a little bit, and he does pick up the odd hamstring, groin injury every once in a while due to the fact he's so explosive. And sometimes these receivers miss a couple games every year. But you're looking at this Dallas offense now and elaborating on what I said earlier. You have 3 dynamic players potentially. If Michael Gallup gets back to what he was before the injury or somewhere close, as a defense, it's going to be really hard to cover this receiving core because you have CeeDee Lamb in the slot. You have Brandin Cooks outside. You have Michael Gallup outside. So you got to pick your poison. And how they're going to pick their poison is most teams are probably going to play double over the middle, on CeeDee Lamb, probably a safety over the top of Brandin Cooks, and then you're going to have Michael Gallup on the weak side, one-on-one. And if he's anywhere close to what he used to be, he's going to be able to take advantage of those opportunities. Slants, comebacks, out routes, just easy money for Dak Prescott. Something they used to have when Amari Cooper was there and CeeDee Lamb was there, Michael Gallup would eat because of those matchups. And I think that will come back. But the thing I think that separates Cooks and Cooper in my mind, even though you may say Cooper's a better player, a more talented player at this point, Brandin Cooks is a tougher football player. He's more experienced. And I think he's got more of a winner attitude. I like Amari Cooper as a player, but I always question his psyche and his mental. I don't question that with Brandin Cooks. I don't question his toughness. I don't question his want to win. So Brandin Cooks is going to bring that to the locker room as well. Going to bring that to this offense. He's going to be a voice for CeeDee Lamb. He's going to be a voice for Tony Pollard and Dak Prescott because he's going to be that veteran that they were missing on offense, just as Stephon Gilmore was for the defense. I am very excited to see how Mike McCarthy and company utilize him. And that's the thing. Mike McCarthy in Green Bay, when he was the primary play caller, he was always great with these deep receivers. You know, Aaron Rodgers, that's a lot of what he did early in his career. So I'm really intrigued to see how he utilizes him in the offense. And clearly it was a huge need. I'm so happy that Dallas, now I'm not a Cowboys fan, my dad is. I am kind of by, I guess you would call it proximity. I do cheer for Dallas every once in a while, but especially now, man, because you have two of my favorite players in the NFL. And I love Brandin Cooks. I love Stephon Gilmore, what they brought to my Patriots. And I love the players, the person. And I feel like they're going to really bring not just presence on the field, but off the field. And I feel like Dallas has been missing that for quite some time. And that's what you miss when you only draft players. That's what Dallas has been doing. It's great to build from the draft. But that's what you miss when you don't sign free agents, when you don't trade for free agents. You miss the opportunity to bring perspective, to bring experience, to bring alternative state of mind. And I feel like Dallas has been labeled choke artists, have been labeled they can't get it done. And part of that inability to get over the hill has been the lack of making moves, but also the lack of bringing those guys that have the X factor, that have the mental state of a winner, the Mamba mentality, right? And I feel like Gilmore certainly has that, and Brandin Cooks does as well. So I'm excited, man. You got 6-time 1,000-yard receiver Brandin Cooks, who is not too far removed from his prime. He's only making $12 million. You barely gave anything up from him. He doesn't even have to move very far. And he is going to be motivated. And he's going to be getting much easier coverage than he was getting in Houston. He's not going to be seeing double teams constantly. He's not going to be seeing the number one corners. He's going to be eating. So, I love it, man. The Archer is back. And Dallas is going to enjoy Brandin Cooks. Thanks, guys, for watching this video. If you enjoyed, don't forget to Gronk spike the like button and subscribe for more Cowboys and NFL free agency breakdowns just like this. It's Mitch. Peace.